Hey all, MuddyMaestro here. It's been quite a while since I've uploaded anything here on this channel, but today I'm breaking the mold with a video providing some feedback for Not My Car. This is a vehicle combat battle royale game that is currently in pre-alpha on PC. You can check it out at notmycar.com and sign up to participate in the playtest there if the game interests you. The footage you're watching right now is the game in action. It isn't my own footage though, it comes from Greenskull's stream. So thanks a lot to him for giving me the thumbs up to use some of his stream for this video. Links to his platforms are down in the description. I would have my own footage of this game, but my PC is shit, and I really need an upgrade, so once I get around to getting a new PC, perhaps I'll record and upload some of my own footage then. In the meantime, I am in this match, and it's rather entertaining, so I hope you enjoy that. So this is going to be a rather macroscopic overview of the game. It's not going to focus on balancing or glitches or tweaks. Obviously, there's a lot of small things that need to be addressed and polished, and the devs are aware of that, and I think that the main purpose of the pre-alpha is more so to gauge the player interest and to figure out what elements of the game they need to focus their efforts in terms of development moving forward. First thing I'd like to say to the devs is thank you for creating a vehicle combat game. It might seem silly for me to say that, but there's so few studios these days that are willing to take a risk on creating a vehicle combat game. And I mean, it's understandable considering that historically the genre hasn't really been a commercial success. But if there's any time in the industry where I think a vehicle combat game could really be a blockbuster, it's now, because so many games just play it safe. They're copy and paste. There's so little innovation these days. So something like this is really refreshing. And this game is very ambitious and risky. I mean, it combines both a rather niche genre with another genre that needs a large player base in order to function at all. And that's the biggest challenge that I currently face as a playtester. The game just needs a larger player base. As it stands, the largest lobbies that I've been able to get into are in the 20s, and most of the time it's probably only 6 to 10 players, and that's not really a way that I can evaluate a battle royale game with that few players. Feels more like a last man standing game on really oversized maps. So the feedback I can provide is pretty limited as it stands. I can really only anticipate what I believe are going to be issues down the road. With that said, I don't have experience with battle royale games. I haven't played PUBG, Fortnite, or the rest. I think I understand the mechanics well enough that I can provide criticism though, and I have a lot of experience playing vehicle combat games, namely Twisted Metal. So I feel I can provide some solid feedback from that angle at the very least. But the most important thing I'd have to stress is get more people into this game. Bring more people into play. Do what you need to do. Send out more keys. Do some sponsored streams. Play some ads. Get more sites to cover your game. I mean, I found the game through the Polygon article before the reveal stream even happened. That kind of stuff does work. And this is the time that you have to build up hype for the game. Because as it stands, every weekend it's pretty much the same thing. Just 6 to 10 player lobbies for the majority of the time that the servers are up. And if the game releases on Steam and it doesn't have a pre-established player base, it's going to be dead on arrival. Nobody's going to play it. Nobody's going to pick it up, especially if you're looking to charge a base price for it. If it's free to play, then you have a better chance of skating by. But if you have to pay for entry to a game that might not even have a player base to begin with, people aren't going to take the risk. So now is the time. Even though it's a pre-alpha, get more people into it. It's imperative. The game needs more players. Also, one thing I'd recommend you consider is to scale back how long the servers are up on these weekends. Because as it stands, the servers are up practically the whole weekend, and it spreads players all across that time, so that there's really very few opportunities for us to have large games because people are poking in at all different times, and they might even be logging in seeing that there isn't a full lobby at that moment and then just jumping off. So I would recommend limiting the time the servers are up to maybe 2 hours in one day during the weekend. That way it'll bottleneck players into logging in at that time so that we can get in just a handful of matches with an actual large number of players and be better able to experience the game as intended with a larger number of players and hopefully be able to provide some better feedback under those circumstances. And I get the struggle that the indie market is so oversaturated these days, and it's really hard to stand out, especially when you aren't even on the storefront yet. But even though this technically isn't an early access game, you've basically got to treat it like it is. Because even though we don't have a monetary investment in the game yet, our time is money, and beyond just bringing in new players, you've got to add new content to the game. You've got to show us something new. You've got to show us that you're committed to this project by adding in new weapons, new abilities, new environments. You've got to move it closer to release because since the initial playtest, we've hardly seen any progress. It's just been some tweaks and balancing, and that's about it. Now, the next piece of advice I would have for the game is for it to have more of its own unique identity. Right now, it feels like it's trying to compete very directly on the Battle Royale market, and especially against PUBG. And I'll be rather blunt when I say this, don't do that. I mean, the two games' aesthetics are very similar, and knowing the size of the team and your development timeline thus far, chances are the majority of your environmental assets are store-bought. And there's nothing intrinsically wrong with that, except for the fact that the majority of PUBG's environmental assets are also store-bought. So it makes the two games very, very similar. And I don't see notmycar being able to skate by without so much of a backstory as PUBG. It's just because in PUBG, you are a person, you are your own avatar. You're immediately immersed in that game. Whereas in Not My Car, we're vehicles. So what's the deal here? Are we drivers? Are we sentient vehicles? Why are we parachuting on this island? What is our motivation? Why are you telling us to buckle up? Why are you calling us Buttercup? What's the deal here? We just need more of a level of immersion beyond it being a game where we're trying to come up on top. It doesn't need to have a deep lore or anything. Just a little bit of something to give the game a bit more personality and not just seeming like it's another Battle Royale game, just this time in cars. It needs to have more of a unique appeal. So I'm going to go a little more in depth into the gameplay mechanics, and the first thing I'll say is that there needs to be more incentive to play aggressively. Because as it stands, if you have an aggressive playstyle, it can be really detrimental to your long-term survivability. And there's a couple of things that factor into that. The first thing being how the armor system works. Because if you kill a player as it currently stands, their armor is gone. You cannot loot it. And I get why that's a thing, because their vehicle blows up and it's a smoldering wreck. But at the same time, you can still get their guns, their ammo, their abilities, their repair kits. So just give us their armor as well. It's really important to be able to swap out your armor whenever you can. Especially because of how rare armor is in the game, especially the level 3 armor. And the fact that it takes a lot more bullets to kill an opponent in this game. And it's a lot more likely that your own armor is going to be damaged when you're in fights with other players, as opposed to a lot of other Battle Royale games where it's more likely you can kill a player without them spotting you first, or you can get a clean shot off on them and they're dead. And especially if you have precise aim with your guns and you don't damage the rest of their armor, you should be rewarded for that. If you focus all your fire on a single piece of their body and their armor is undamaged, then you should be able to swap out your own damaged armor with that. And it would give a lot more incentive to actually go out and fight, because otherwise you can oftentimes be left with damaged armor and then just be the next one to be picked off when someone follows the gunfire and spots you with a very damaged vehicle. And the second reason is that there is just a lack of variety of loot currently. And I'm not saying that just because it's a novelty for there to be more loot. I say that because it's really easy to be set up for the game really early into the game. And one of the reasons why aggressive playstyles in other battle royales are effective is because resources are scarce, and being able to loot other players and get the items that they have acquired from other areas of the map is really, really critical towards the end game. But just because there is such a lack of variety of loot, it really doesn't make a difference to loot other players. You're not gonna come out with much of an advantage from it, especially if your armor gets damaged as a result. It's only going to be detrimental to you if you come out with damaged armor and you can't replace it before the circle closes too tight on you. So, if there was wider variety of loot and there was more reason to go after players to loot them, then that would inspire a lot more aggression. Also, another idea that I tossed out there on the forums is for abilities to be consumables. And that way it would become just another element of loot that you'd want to attack other players for. Because right now it's pretty easy to come across the abilities that you want, and then again, you're just set for the game. Because as it currently stands, they're all just on a regen timer. At the same time, it would also make it less likely for there to be games of cat and mouse with players using their abilities and then just starting off and hiding, waiting for their regen timer to provide their abilities back. I mean, at the same time, one could also say that if they're consumables, then they'll try to hide so that they can save them and not use them. But at the same time, they're consumables. If you kill a player, then you can loot them off of another player, most likely. So I think that it would be a better solution. I will say the best thing that notmycar has going for it is the fact that it really has the potential to flip the script on the stereotype that Battle Royale games are 98% just running and waiting and 2% action. This has the potential to be a really chaotic, fast-paced, and fun Battle Royale game, while at the same time still maintaining the same level of strategy and cunning, and even deeper combat, way deeper combat than first or third person shooter. If you're going to focus on developing more weapons, definitely focus on developing front mount weapons. And I am not just saying that because there's less front mount weapons than top mount weapons, but because the front mount weapons make the game, and they will make the game so much better once there are more in them and they're more viable to use. Because they take a lot more skill to use, and therefore they should have more damage output. And as it stands, the shotgun does. It's awesome, really fun weapon to use when you're able to blindside an opponent, get into their blind spot, and just tear them to pieces with that thing. Using your abilities and being able to outdrive them and outplay them. It shouldn't just be war of attrition with two people, one with a machine gun and one with a Gatling gun, just circling each other and firing on each other. Uh, it should be a lot more deep in terms of moving around, trying to outposition each other, trying to neutralize each other's weapons, because that's what vehicle combat is about. It's not just about lining your opponent up in the crosshairs and shooting them. It's about being able to outplay them, and the front mount weapons really allow for that. As well, don't be shy to borrow proven mechanics from other vehicle combat games, such as things as having different vehicle classes, certain ones being speedier, certain ones being more maneuverable, certain ones being able to take more damage, certain ones being smaller hitbox, things like that, even if they don't have varying stats. Just having different vehicle models and being able to personalize yourself more beyond just having colors and hood ornaments and whatnot would really add a lot of immersion to the game as well. Also, take note of the game that people are referencing first when they talk about this game. They're not talking about PUBG as the first game they bring up very often. The vast majority of people are bringing up Twisted Metal first, and that speaks volumes. There is a very large audience that's wanting a new vehicle combat game, and a lot of people that are taking interest in this game because it is a vehicle combat game. I would not be here talking about this game right now if it weren't a vehicle combat game. If it was just another battle royale game, I wouldn't give half a shit. I'm totally honest. The fact that this is a vehicle combat game and it is a solid effort is what is keeping me interested in this project. So in broad strokes, that's what I think of the game. And I will say I am enjoying it up to this point. I was a little bit concerned when I first started playing that it was gonna be really slow paced and that the combat was gonna be shallow, but it surprised me up to this point, and it's pleasantly surprised me. Is it of the same caliber as Twisted Metal? No. But it is a half decent stand-in, and considering we really have no idea of the future of the Twisted Metal IP, this is a game that vehicle combat fans can rally around. And consider development on PS4, because there are a lot of Twisted Metal fans that are Sony loyalists, and they probably have a PS4 over a PC. So that's a market that it would be beneficial to appeal to. So that pretty much wraps things up. Thanks very much for watching, and thanks to anyone from the dev team who might have watched this as well. For those subscribed to my channel and curious what the future holds, I do have a lot of Twisted Metal footage I still intend to upload. And yes, the servers are still up, and yes, I still play the game. I'll probably have a channel update sometime in the near future to give a little bit more details on some of the content that I have planned. So until next time, catch you around, and thanks again.